Everybody, welcome to another video. We have got some more Newcastle United content. We've got them after one of the best young prospects in La Liga, in my opinion. I feel like this guy has the play style of Pogba. And under good management in the Premier League, he can really burst and become something special. We've also got news on a winger, with Newcastle potentially allowing Anthony Gordon to leave this summer, and also some further news on Bryan Mbeumo. But before I begin, if you are new here, please hit the subscribe and the like as well. It'd be greatly appreciated. And we're going to talk about, Jamie, Bino-Gittens and Gregor Kobel. There was news came out, I think it was quite a couple of weeks ago now, but I just found it quite interesting. Newcastle United scouts have been to watch Borussia Dortmund in recent weeks, and I was specifically monitoring Gregor Kobel and Jamie Bino-Gittens. When I first saw this report, it made me think Newcastle scouts really do have an eye for talent. Someone like Jamie Bino-Gittens' profile is one that I would love to see at Arsenal. Somebody who can adjust to the touchline winger role. Somebody who can also receive the ball inside. 20 years old. Blistering pace. Transitional threat. Low block threat. Really good profile. Gregor Kobel, very, very good goalkeeper in his own right. But I obviously think, they were watching him. But obviously Trafford is the main sort of target for them. I think Kobel probably comes second in that list. With more focus on Jamie Bino-Gittens, because reports also came out that Newcastle United are willing to get rid of Anthony Gordon. When I first saw that news break, a lot of Newcastle fans that I've interacted with before on Twitter and I watched the feed and what they're saying, genuinely would take an 80 million offer for Anthony Gordon to reinvest. I found this quite strange because I personally think Anthony Gordon has been phenomenal for Newcastle. I haven't watched him week in, week out like you Newcastle fans have. When we look at the profile of Jamie Bino-Gittens, he would probably be one of the main names in the list to replace Gordon if he was to go. Please do let me know your thoughts on Gordon. I've read some of the comments. A lot of you like him. A lot of other ones of you guys, of Newcastle fans, would be willing to let him go for around 80 million. But Gittens, he's really good in the dribble. Can go left, he can go right. Weak foot, stronger foot. One of those valuable profiles in football. You're thinking about two-footed wingers, the directness they can have, the unpredictability in the 1v1, the change and turn of pace. It is really frightening. It really is. And in terms of non-penalty goals, he's in the top 15% for wingers. In terms of successful take-ons, the top 1%. He's a pure dribbler. Pure dribblers can really open the game for you. Think about Doku, Savinho, really good dribblers out wide. Gittens is of the same mould, but think about blistering pace in them as well. If Doku had blistering pace, that is what Bino-Gittens is. In terms of passes, he's really good, really creative. Backstick crosses, whips them in, low-driven balls across the box. Really, really good. And an underrated aspect of his game is the way he presses. Jamie Bino-Gittens is really good in terms of looking at that, the tackles he gets in, the interceptions, the blocks. For a winger to be in the sort of top 36% of wingers in terms of defensive statistics is really impressive. This is a kid that's having his first proper season in the Bundesliga with responsibility of playing many minutes, and he's thriving. He's doing the defensive job. He's really good going forward. He'll be a nice replacement for a Gordon if Newcastle were actually willing to let him go for the 80 million. We know Chelsea are interested, Arsenal and Liverpool. If Diaz goes, will they come back in for Gordon? There's many questions like that, but Jamie Bino-Gittens is the right sort of profile to replace a Gordon if he was to go. And if we are looking at Anthony Gordon, you can already tell. Obviously, he's in the Premier League. If he was in the Bundesliga, he probably had a better stats than it looks on here. But in terms of what Gordon is good at, Jamie Bino-Gittens can be and already provides at a similar level. In terms of his progressive carries, we saw Gittens how good he is. Successful take-ons, I think Gittens is a much better dribbler. Blocks, Gittens is higher. Interceptions and tackles as well, he's higher. So this is somebody who can adjust to the house system whilst maintaining that threat going forward. And at 20, I can just tell you right now, this kid, if he isn't picked up now, will probably be going for the 80, 90 millions in a couple of years. That's how much I value his talent and how much of an explosion he's about to go through. Now let's get on to what I love to call mini Pogba. In terms of the way this guy plays on the ball is so impressive. He's 22 years old. His name is Christantus Uche. He's from Nigeria. Plays for Getafe. Newcastle weren't interested. Other clubs are also interested. This kid is really good. He can play in the 10, can play up front as well, which is quite weird, but also in the 6 and the 8 role. And having that versatility has improved his impact in all phases of the game. Forward areas, he's effective. Defensive areas, he's effective. And we'll just have a sit down and we'll watch now the compilation of him and I'll talk about him. Obviously, here are the statistics you can already see in La Liga, the sort of league it is. You don't even need to be an expert to take this information in. It's so varied. You've got a lot of assists in there. You've got a lot of goals, tackles, interceptions. He's one of the best. You can already tell. Going forward, on the ball, defensive interceptions. Very, very varied. You know, that's what Pogba gave us. You know, a player who can do all aspects and phases of the game. And they're very rare in football. You know, when you find somebody, he isn't as good as Pogba. I'm not saying he's as good as Pogba. But he has the potential to have the impact in certain games as Pogba. Obviously, technical levels, Pogba is a different gravy. But he really does have some good attributes which can be coachable into a very good player. And here it is. Just look at that tight control in there. This is somebody who can play in the 6 and the 8 role. So comfortable in the forward areas. How many times have we seen Pogba score a goal like that? Outside of the box. Care in the finish. That's a Pogba goal. Look at that for technique and control. He's so in control of the ball. It is phenomenal. For someone that's 22 years of age, so powerful as well in the carry. This is no disrespect to the Newcastle midfielders, but ball carrying from, like, let's say, your own goal to the opposition box, that's not the specialities of a Bruno or Tonali or a Joelinton. With Uche, he brings you that ball carrying ability to get you up the pitch. They're much better passes, obviously, but Uche on the ball is really impressive in terms of how he carries forward. And you're thinking this guy would probably cost around 22 million. That's his release clause. You're thinking about Longstaff is going to leave for around 10 to 15 million. This guy would be a really good replacement. He really would be. Just look at how composed he is. Just look at the technique in the strike. There's just so many raw attributes for a really top manager to work with here. That's what he gives you. The strength there to then carry the ball. How many times has Pogba played that ball forward? There's just small attributes, you know, small attributes which remind me of a Pogba. And a profile which Newcastle could very well do with. But that is Uche. And obviously the interest is there from Chelsea, Villa, Bournemouth. And that should tell you how good of a player he is. To have this many clubs interested in him and the quality of those clubs. You know, Bournemouth, they got Hoysin, Zabani. They've done really smart buys in the past. Villa, smart buys in the past. Chelsea, we know their obsession with youngsters. They do, to be fair, get some top youngsters. So Newcastle are once again putting their hat in the ring for the top youngsters. You know, I saw a report about Desiree Doué being of interest to Dan Ashwood many years ago. Ekatike, Newcastle wanted him. So the scouting network of Newcastle is really underrated. And that's critical when you're trying to now really build and make yourself a machine in the Premier League. And obviously, we'll just end up talking about Bryan Mbeumo because there's been a lot of talk. Newcastle hold a strong interest, obviously. But a 60 million price is proving a stumbling block. I want to know you Newcastle fans' thoughts. Obviously, last summer, you guys were messed around by Mark Gahey. 1 minute it was 60 million from Paris. Not Mark Gahey, sorry, from Paris. 1 minute it was 60 million. Next minute it was 70 million. Next minute it was 80 million. You don't want that. Brentford, I think, are more classy in the sense they won't really keep it up in the price. But naturally, the more interest in him there is, the more Brentford can up that price. So as a Newcastle fan watching this, how high would you go for the profile of a Bryan Mbeumo? Is 60 your start point? Is 70 where you start saying no thank you? Or is it maybe 50? Is that 60 a bit too much anyway? What are your thoughts? Because the quality of Bryan Mbeumo is clear to see. This guy's going to be a phenomenal player. And for me, it just feels destined for him to play at Newcastle. Just thinking about that front three. Gordon or Gittens, whoever it is next season. Isak, Mbeumo. You're thinking about a really strong front three which rivals pretty much any team in Europe, I would say. So as a Newcastle fan, how high would you go for Bryan Mbeumo? But anyway, that's it for now. Hope you have enjoyed, and until next time, peace.